how we used to get scores. I was talking about this on Twitter this weekend. You used to be, I remember being in a movie theater before you had smartphones. And this is way back. So this is when I was in like high school. This is like early to mid 2000s when you would be at a movie theater and I would have a bet on like UCLA and I would text for info, like four, then it was 4-8, whatever, 4-6, whatever for info is. And then it would text back to you like UCLA and then the score. And then like I was on my parents' plan and like I only had a certain amount of text maybe at that time, but so you would have to use them wisely. But then my favorite was obviously Tell Me. So you would call 1-800-555-TELL and you'd be in a bar.
Right.
This is what it used to be like. This is mid to late 2000s when you didn't have internet on your phone, right? We didn't have smartphones. And you would call this number and it would say, tell me. And then it would start to go through the menu. You would just say sports. And a lot of times they would say, okay, weather. And they would go, sports. And you'd be in a corner of a bar. Finally, they would get it and it would be like a horn and it would go, sports. And then you would say, college basketball. A lot of times they'd be like, okay, golf. The golf report for Friday. No, college basketball, main menu. Okay. This crazy. And then finally we get to and then it would be, hi, Mark, just the highlights, Andretti here. And then you would say, Austin P. And then he would say, on Friday, Austin P. was obliterated by, and then all these different adjectives that you knew what it meant, bad and good, right before you even got the score. So if you're in your early to mid 30s or older, you know what I'm talking about. You're younger, you're probably like, what the fuck are you talking about? But those are some of the weird ways that I used to get scores when I was out, when you had action going on. Anything to add?
Well, I mean, I think if you're a Gen Z or a millennial, you have to realize that back in the day, like we had rotary phone back in my day, back in like late 80s, we had to use the telephone for everything, a rotary phone. And they would create content and programming. Like for wrestling shows, you could call a 900 number and pay like $2.99, $1.99 a minute. And you could listen to what's going on at the house shows or a pay-per-view or Starcade or something. And I think, oh yeah. And I got deep shit for this. Cause I got my parents almost beat the crap out of me. Cause I called one of these 900 numbers for like wrestling info because it was being advertised on WTBS after a Braves game. Like, if you really want to know what happens at the Great American Bash, you can call this number and pay $1.99 a minute. And I think what people don't realize, like,
and you're listening to like it live or someone's telling you what's going on?
No, it was a created content audio message to tell you what happened during like a Sting Great Muta match or like a Ric Flair Dusty Rhodes match. So that was wild. And I think for all of you that play like fantasy sports out there, if you are a dinosaur, I guess I'm turning into a dinosaur, but the first time I played fantasy baseball was with my uncle when I was 13 years old. We had to get all the box scores out of the newspaper the next day and hand key our stats on a piece of paper. Like we kept fantasy baseball numbers and tallies for the season on a daily basis from box scores in the newspaper. And sometimes we would have to learn those games early by actually calling, like we'd call up the Kansas City Royals box office, like, what's the score of the Twins Royals game? Like, cause we didn't have any apps back then. We didn't have any way to find out whatsoever. There was nothing on TV. Like people don't realize there was a Saturday night game. Then Scully would do the ABC game of the week. Like on Saturday, the Braves were always on. The Cubs were always during the day cause they didn't have lights. Imagine this, Gen Z and millennials. The Cubs didn't have lights till 1989, and when they flipped it on, it was such a huge deal. Like it was this mega thing that Wrigley Field had lights. So getting scores back then it's so much different now. Everything's so on demand. It's just unfathomable to think about where we were back then.
Yeah, I mean, now that we have our app is telling you in live and live your actual what your record would be and your win probability. Right to the second. It's insane. We're actually betting it live, and it's and the other thing you could do is if you bet offshore, like so if you had accounts offshore, like I remember way back in the day, I would call back in college, I would call like Five Dimes, their office, and you could ask like what the score of a game was. I remember doing that a couple times. But it's just some crazy ways we used to get scores. All right.